guys? Welcome back to Sweat Equity. I'm kind of switching gears back to working on cars again. I have cleaned out my side of the garage. I actually got my E66 back in the garage where it belongs. And that is mostly because it's broken and I actually need to fix it. Currently I cannot drive either of the Beamers. I'm relying on my Toyotas. Figures, right? I'm pretty much going back and forth between the 99 Camry and the 08 Tundra, alternating every day. It's kind of weird walking out in the morning and only having choices of two vehicles to drive. So there's actually been two issues with this car recently. The first was I ended up replacing it's called the IVM. It's like what I would call what do we call it on Toyotas? Integration relay. And it's the same thing basically. It's a block, and I just threw the old one away last night. It sits under here. You just take your airbox, your cabin filter airbox out, and it basically just sits right under there. I did not get it on film. It's not hard to replace. But this car, ever since I've gotten it about a year and a half ago, it's had intermittent issues. It had issues where it would have a no crank, no start. You would get in, hit the start button, all the lights would come to life, but it wouldn't crank. And it would usually take about 5 minutes before it would start. It always would start eventually, but it would just not do it for several minutes. I've had situations where it would die. It actually died briefly. I was on the highway. I was passing a truck, and I floored it. It picked up just fine, got up to speed that I'm not going to mention, and the whole car just died for a split second and then came back to life. I think the fact that I was going so fast was the only reason that it kept going, but it went into like transmission limp mode and all kinds of stuff like that. So it was kind of, a little interesting. I ended up pulling off the highway, turn it off, turn it back on, which is how you fix BMWs if you didn't know that. Normally if you just turn them off, wait a couple minutes or two, start them back up, whatever issue they had, you'll be fine. It would do these things very infrequently, like once a month, maybe every other month. And it was annoying. It kind of made me think like, this car, I just can't trust this car to take it anywhere like real far. Finally, when it did that one right there, basically it did something 3 times within 2 days. I went out one morning to start it. It had the no crank, no start. I didn't drive it that day. I just said, screw it, I'm gonna take one of the other 3 cars. I came back in the next morning, started right up. That's when it did the thing on the highway. It set a whole bunch of codes that time. Then when I left work that day, I already kind of knew what the problem was at that point. I left work that day and I was pulling out, made it down to the end of the road from work, made a right turn. As I'm making the right turn, the car dies. At that point I already knew what was wrong and was just trying to get it home, basically, and then once I did just restart and made it home, and it was fine. It threw about 8 codes, and it was for injectors. All these codes, or all these systems, all were powered off of that one relay module. Relays in general are prone to fail because they're a switch. Every time you use a switch, you're putting a little bit of pitting on the contacts. And that's the same reason that starters fail after a while, where you get that thing where you turn the key and it just clicks. It's the same idea. That starter solenoid solenoid is very similar to a relay. It has clicked so many times that it's pitted up the contacts, and it draws it in, but it doesn't have a good electrical contact when it connects. A lot of times if you just do it a few times, you'll bump it and you'll get it to work again. Same thing with a relay. So that's kind of what happened with this. I put the new module in. It's about 140 bucks on FCP Euro, and that's for the BMW part. And that part has been fine ever since. I didn't do the video for that specifically right away because I wanted to give it some time. But it's been about 2 months now, I would say, since I put that in. No issues anymore with any of those problems I was having. Sometimes the car, you have a misfire. I remember one time I started it up and it started right up fine, but it clearly was missing a cylinder. It was just running really rough. And it did that one time. So that was another thing that can be caused from that. Like if it didn't fire like one injector, because of a bad contact or something like that. It could do that. That definitely was an issue that I fixed, and it was fine. I drove the car for a solid week because I really miss driving this thing. I love this car. I mean, it's not sporty by any means, but I like big boats. The E36 is by far the smallest car I've ever had. Normally everything I drive is pretty big and a little bit more luxurious, I guess. The next issue, which is what I need to look at now, is I was sitting at work idling the car with the AC on. Not something that I like to do, but I was doing it, just kind of eating my lunch in my car with the AC on. Probably the hottest day we've had so far, and it was literally like just baking it, like the hood was like smack in the sunlight. And all of a sudden I get low oil pressure messages on the dash. I'm just kind of like, cool. That's not something you want to see. And it said on the iDrive screen, it's like, to contact your dealer, continued drive is not possible. It's like, yeah, no shit. But there's no noise coming from the engine sounded completely fine. Did a little bit of quick Googling of it, and people are like, oh, well, maybe it's just your oil pressure sensor is bad, Well, if the oil pressure sensor was bad, it would be completely sporadic, I would think. And what I learned is that it only did it at idle, like hot idle, fully warmed up. Or I trailered the car at home myself because I didn't want to deal with it down there. I knew I wasn't going to want to mess with this thing immediately. So I trailered it home, sat here for probably a week, thought, maybe it was just a fluke, it was a really hot day. So I took it out for a drive up here, and completely fine until, it was probably running for about 15 minutes. I came and stopped. I had my in-laws in the back and my wife with me. We were going to dinner, and pulled over to let them out of the car. And as I'm just sitting there idling, the message came up again. As soon as you put it in park, give it a little bit of gas, or just hit the gas and accelerate, the light goes out. It's only when it's at low RPM idle, like hot idle. That's what makes me realize that there is an actual oil pressure issue. It's not just a sensor that's bad, because it's only telling me that there's a problem when the oil pressure would be at its lowest. When the engine is cold, it's going to have a lot higher oil pressure than once it's warmed up. I tried to be as discreet as I could. I think my mother-in-law was still in the back seat, and I was trying to just park the car, and just act like nothing was wrong. I didn't want them to freak out about it or anything. And she said, oh, is there a problem with the oil? I said, yeah, maybe. Because, of course, it's a BMW. It's got gong going off. There's this big message on the center screen with red and everything. And she said, well, do you have more in the trunk? I said, oh, it's full of oil. That's not the issue. Try to let it pass as much as I could. We, went inside, everything was fine, come back out, start it up, drive home, no problem. I just never really let it idle. I just tried to keep moving. Never came back on. But at least knew that there was a problem. So, got in the shop now. Got in my garage now, and I'm going to show you what I am hoping is the problem, because the engine makes no noise at all. It sounds fine. There are these check valves in each cylinder head. There's 6 total, 3 on each side, that are designed to keep oil pressure in the heads after the car's been turned off and sitting. And so you don't have any, you don't have a dry startup, basically. And that's one thing that I will say about the BMWs that I've had. I mean, some people say if you have the Vanos, that some of the older ones, I guess, they had issues where you had noise on startup. All of my cars that I've ever had, coldest day of the year, you start them up, they sound just fine. And I think it's because of something like that, where it keeps oil pressure in the head, for the Vanos, for the lifters. Lifters is probably what you'd hear more than anything, like a ticking on cold start, until the oil pressure builds up and fills everything up. Evidently these guys, they have like little plastic check balls, or there's some plastic in there that gets brittle over time, and they can fail, where they either let the oil pressure back through or they actually get, I think what normally happens where it causes the oil pressure issue is they have a blockage, so the oil can't get through. And I think I'm hoping that's what I have here. So I'm gonna go ahead and take off kind of all this mess right here, and we're gonna try to get it down to where we can actually see where these things are. I'm not sure if you're gonna be able to see this, but I just took off just the whole air intake, plenum, and the engine cover. And if you look down in there, there's a Torx head, like right in the center there. And that's one of them. There's actually, I'm gonna see, I might just take off this PVC pipe right here and see if it just kind of gives me a little bit more access. These covers just pop off, if I remember. I don't really need to take them off, but I'm just gonna lift it up a little bit like that. These should just squeeze. At least that's the way they're supposed to. Might need some pliers. There we go. Yeah, so you just kind of squeeze them. Now, the side ones don't want to come off very easily. There we go. Now I can turn the whole thing so I can get a better shot at it. Try to squeeze them like that. All right. I guess I should check these things. These are actually a pretty common cause of smoking out of the exhaust, other than the valve seals. I feel like I have checked them, but I don't have any smoke out of the exhaust, so I just never really bothered. But this is one of the two. This side, the one on this side, I think is in the, yeah, it's right here. It's in the valve cover on this side. So, there we go. Let's just take a look at these while we're here, shall we? Probably would not be a bad idea to replace these either way. There's a little bit of like oil sludge in there. I guess what happens is these get hard. This seems nice and pliable. Yeah, this actually seems fine. These will tear or get really hard, brittle, but yeah, these seem fine. So, you know, indication, I guess, that the car did at least have good oil changes before I got it. I don't think it was great, but I now do it every 5,000 miles. I don't think it was ever getting that before, so. All right, so we checked that. That's good. I'm pretty sure the other side would be the same. I don't know why it would be any different. Just put that cover back on. Hopefully that's the way that was supposed to go. Wow, I didn't even tighten either of these. Both of these clamps were loose. That's interesting. Now, that must have been from when I did this guy. You probably, if you've subscribed to my channel for a while, you saw where I did this repair. This fixed another problem that the car was having intermittently, where it would go into limp mode as well. These are 10 mil. And let's, yeah, okay. Not too bad. All right, now, I can definitely see the ones on this side a lot easier. And they kind of did a nice thing. This hose, this coolant hose right here actually has like a little L shape in it. I think literally so you could get on that easier. We've got some like dirt on the intake there. It needs to come out of there. And I guess this right here is the coolant pipe that everybody says is always a huge issue with these engines. I don't see anything wrong with mine right now. A little bit of oil seepage around the front cover, but that's the only thing I really see. I don't really see any what looks like coolant, and I don't lose any coolant, so I guess for now we're not going to worry about that problem. Now I see all three on this side. Right there, and then there's one right up here behind it. All right, so we can see all three of them now. I'm probably going to focus on this side first. Now you can see those real easily, right? The three Torx. So we're going to try to take those out and give them a little inspection. All right, so they're T40. I'm going to start with, that's probably the easiest one. Cracker loose. It's kind of tight. I mean, it's cracked loose, but I guess you still need the ratchet on there. And these things are about $39 a piece, if I remember, on FCP Euro. I believe they are original BMW parts. So if you did go in and replace all six just as maintenance, it's going to cost you like 200 bucks. Like, what I was kind of thing I was going to do was replace these as well as the oil pressure sender, because that was pretty cheap. I think that was like under $10. But I figured at least take them out, look at them, see how they are. Yeah, so there's one right there. And I believe they're all the same. And so there's this plastic in the bottom, which I guess can break and like fall out. I think you're supposed to be able to, I'm going to look it up, but I'm pretty sure you're supposed to be able to blow through it. Obviously, I'm not, well, you know, shouldn't blow through it when it's covered in oil. But we're going to inspect this one a little bit further. All right, so got it out. I just kind of cleaned it off with some carb cleaner. And this one seems to be fine. The way you check them is you, and do this at your own risk, okay? You put your mouth and you blow this way. It should not blow through these holes. So this one doesn't do that. So the check ball is working to where it's sealed, where it would not allow the oil pressure to go back through this way. And then if you take your finger and cover up one of these two holes and you blow through here, you should be able to blow through that way, and it comes out here. This one seems to be okay. It does blow through, although not a huge, that's probably normal. So I think this one is okay. So I'm going to go ahead and take all of them out. I'm probably going to replace these because from what I can see, they're very important. And I mean, you know, this car, it only has 92,000 miles, but they're 13, 14 years old. So I'm sure that this plastic here is getting ready to break. And I guess if these break and come out, these can clog up, you know, oil passages, the oil pump, and get stuck in the oil pump and cause all kinds of havoc. So I tend to be a little bit ahead of the game. I try to do preventative maintenance on my BMWs especially, and I think for spending about 200 bucks and replacing these is a good investment to save me some headaches down the road. Even if it isn't my problem right now, but I'm hoping that it is. So I'm going to go ahead and pull the other ones out. I might just put it on time lapse. If I find anything, I'll let you know as far as anything new that looks different. All right, so far, I've just kind of laying these out in order they come out as far as like farthest to the right. You know, this is the first one on the left. They all are still intact, at least. I haven't blown through any of the other ones yet. The ones on the driver's side head are definitely a lot more challenging to get out. So I was gonna kind of show a little bit better, I guess, how I'm doing these. You basically just want to try to get the right combination of extensions, swivels, wobbles, whatever you want to call them, in here. So I got the first one out, which is actually the one, oh, actually, so I'm gonna put these in a different order. So this is the furthest to the left, the one that I just took out, all the way up here. And I was able to use this combination here. This is a wobble extension, so like it gives it a little bit of slop on there. I actually can't find a universal, like, you know, normal swivel head, but hopefully I won't actually need that. So now I'm working on this, like the middle one, which is, I've got the socket on there. I just kind of unplugged a few things. There's like this hose that goes right here. I just unplugged this the coolant temp sensor wire right here, just to kind of move that back a little bit. And so now I'm going to just see if I can just get the ratchet down in here on this. There's this hose right on top of it. So it's gonna be a little tricky to get this side, but I think that it is doable without taking the intake manifold off. There's this hose right here, which I can kind of bend down. It's just a rubber hose. Try to get my ratchet orientated the way that the socket is, so I can just push it on. And I don't seem to be able to do that, evidently. There we go. All right. Okay. This is definitely where having a universal socket would help. I don't know why I can't find one right now. Try to turn it by hand, or you can just barely turn it by hand. All right, but that one is coming, so I can get that one. Let me just see if I can get on the one next to it. At least we know we got them all, or we can crack them loose and get them out. Now this one actually has the hose clamp for that hose that I'm trying to move out of the way, right next to it. So I've got the one on the right up here, that one's cracked loose. This one, I'm gonna have to probably adjust that clamp a little bit, because the screw on the clamp is right over top of that, I think. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe I can still get it in there. But that's where I'm working now. The one up here is out. Can you see that? Yeah, that one is out. All right, so I was able to put a 5.5 millimeter socket on that hose clamp. It might actually be a 5, but I'd already gotten it loose with a flat blade. You need to do a flat blade or probably a 5 or 5.5 mil to loosen that. So I can just kind of twist that out of the way a little bit, like that. Because I was able to get the Torx on it, but then I'm not gonna be able to slide it out because it's right over top of it. Just gotta sneak it in there somehow. And try to, oh, actually, you know what? Okay, so I forgot I was doing this. So what I'm going to try is get the socket on it, or in it, okay, and then take a 1/4 inch wrench, and this fits over the shaft of the socket. Now I don't know if it's going to be every socket, but it might very well be. That fits perfectly over the actual, I just dropped it again. There's not really enough room to get the head of the the ratchet in there. But if you can get the socket on, you take a wrench that fits over your socket, which in this case is a 1/4 inch, and then you can break it loose like that. All right, so we're in the socket, we're in the hole. I'm gonna put the wrench over it. Oh man, that's tight. All right, so slide it over this first, so that way it's not gonna round it off or anything or slip. Come on, so close. All right, so we're gonna try this. I've got the box end around it, and we're gonna take, this is like a 9mm wrench that we can kind of lock into place like that, and that'll give you about 8 inches of leverage instead of like 3.5 inches of leverage. Gotta clock it one more tooth, I guess. Try not to break any of these brittle plastic things. You get it pushed down in the, kind of locked in there. Jesus. Did you get it? I doubt it. Oh, I think it did. Yep. Alright, so it's cracked loose. That's how you crack that one loose. If you don't want to take the intake manifold off, and I sure as hell don't want to. Alright, so now I just got to get those turned out of there, which is going to be tedious, but doable. We got it cracked loose. That's the hard part. There's enough space to get it out. You're just going to have to sit in here and manually turn this by hand until you can get, you know, just spin it out of there. So I'm not going to bore you with that because this is probably going to take the rest of my life, but that's, we got them all cracked loose, and I'm just going to basically get them all out, and then we're going to come back and actually inspect all of them. All right, so there they all are. They all appear to be good. So it's like, you know, I kind of, it didn't take that long to get them out. I mean, I just cleaned them all out. You know, I blew some of my carb clean, you know, down in here, like that. And, you know, just checked them all. None of them blow backwards. They all blow through this way. But, you know, I'm kind of wondering if maybe like just a couple of them or one of them, you know, was kind of sticking to where it just wasn't allowing the oil to go through. So I could just put them all back in and give it a try. You know, it's not that much money, but I mean, you know, I'm not exactly rolling in money here. So to spend $200 on something where, you know, this thing may have a major issue, which I doubt, but you never know. So I've got a little bit of a dilemma here as far as what I'm going to do, because once again, I didn't find my smoking gun, and these all appear to be okay. I feel like it would be dumb to put these back in because of how old they are, and I'm sure that these things are eventually going to fail, probably sooner rather than later. And I guess there is a good chance that they're just, you know, a little bit gummed up in there when, you know, and probably cleaning them may have very well fixed that. Because a couple of them, it seemed like I had to push, you know, apply a good bit of mouth pressure to make them go. Again, do this at your own risk. But just put your finger, you know. I mean, they're supposed to have some pressure, I guess. And there is a spring in there. Some of them do sound different, like it's a little bit less of a restriction, like some kind of do that, really kind of like buffer. So I don't know. Probably just gonna go ahead and replace them. And I'm kind of wondering if I just switch to 5W40 oil instead of 5W30, if that extra, you know, weight, extra viscosity would be enough to keep the oil light from coming on. That's kind of where I'm at right now. Didn't take me more than about an hour, I'd say, to get everything out. Even the ones on the driver's side head, you know, with the little trick I showed you, I mean, it wasn't that bad. I mean, it's definitely a doable job, and it probably is good to do it as preventive maintenance before they come apart, because if they do come apart, it could be bad things. So 98.5% sure I'm going to replace them, and yeah, so we'll come back when I have the new parts. We're going to replace the oil pressure switch while we're at it. To get to that, you got to take the airbox out. I already took them out, but there's 2 screws right here, but you also have to remove this too. There was a bolt right there, bolt right there. Those were both Torx, T20 Torx right here, and right there, and right there. And all you gotta do is just lift this up. You just have to kind of move it up. It does have like a little grommet right down there. You have to kind of pull up. It didn't open the cap or anything, so it shouldn't leak. Just kind of sit it up out of the way, and then you can pull this out. You can see that. And this one does actually look pretty oily. Yeah, so connector, just squeeze it from it's on the back side of it, pull it off. Yeah, see, it's full of oil. So that actually could be our problem right there. So I'm gonna take that out, and we're gonna clean this connector out really good. I'm so glad I'm changing the check valves, just because they are a known failure, and when they do fail, it's bad news. But I think we may have found our actual problem. Now, I noticed that FCP was selling a socket specifically for this. I kind of feel like you can put like a 24 socket over it. Yeah. This is a deep 24 socket. Should do it. Should just be able to crack it loose and then pull it out. Or spin it out. This is gonna spill some, I'm sure. Hopefully not a ton. Yeah. So it's spilling out some oil. There it is. And it's only got one pin. Well, maybe that's all it needs. But that's full of oil in there. So this is definitely bad. Definitely found a problem there. I think that may be my smoking gun. I'm gonna just kind of clean this thing off a little bit and see if I can blow through it. Ah, jeez. Ah, jeez. Ah, jeez. Ah. Ugh. Shit. Still got me in the eye. Held it away from me. This is why I should wear safety glasses, guys. Ooh, that burned. Oh, I got these sunglasses here. Whew. Carb cleaner plus parts cleaner. Normally I just spray myself with brake clean. That isn't quite as bad. So, wear safety glasses, guys. Don't be an idiot, okay? You never know when something's gonna hit you. And also, don't put your mouth in dirty things. You know, I don't know if blowing through this is, if it's a bad enough leak, because I mean, really, it's just a seat. Yeah, I mean, I don't have enough strength to push that through, but I mean, you can see that the only reason there's oil in there is because this is bad. So, good. All right, I feel a little more comfortable now that if we replace this as fixing the repair, as fixing the concern, plus doing those as maintenance, those being the these guys, that we actually will fix the car. All right, we're back and I've got some parts. It took like a week to get these things from FCP because I was cheap and used the free shipping. So I should have 6 new check valves. They are BMW parts. You can see the part number there. New oil pressure switch right there. I ended up going with the BMW branded one. It was $25 instead of like $5 for the whatever their brand is, because they had a $20 off coupon for spending over like $200 or something like that. So I'm kind of curious to see what these things feel like as far as like blowing through them. You can see, you know, obviously it's the new one. It's different shade of gray or brown. I guess that's because this one's got oil on it. I almost thought I saw a crack on that, but I guess not. All right, so let's just see. I'm curious. Yeah, it sounds the same. It kind of, it's like a buffering. So these, I'm sure these are all good. I'm pretty sure my problem was the oil pressure switch that was leaking internally. But now that I know that these things are a failure item, they're now new. So there's a new switch. It's only got 1 wire, 1 pin. We know it's a genuine part, so that should be good. I'm gonna go ahead and put all these things in. As far as putting these in, I will see if I can find a torque spec for it. I'm not gonna use it. I'm just gonna snug them down. They've got an O-ring, which is gonna be what seals it. So, I mean, they don't have to be super tight or anything like that. They just need to be in there tight enough. There was no thread locker on these old ones, so just a little snug of the wrist. With, you know, with your ratchet handle, you should be good to go with that. Same with this. You just this does have a crush washer on it, so I'll try to look up a torque spec for the pressure switch and these, just so that you have it. But I'm just going to be snugging them down. I'm probably going to put this on time lapse here, putting it back together, and then will be the moment of truth whenever I actually test to see if it works. right, just about to the moment of truth here. And it won't necessarily know right away because it has to kind of warm up a little bit first. There's actually a pretty good amount of oil that leaked out. I'm assuming it came out of the where the oil pressure switch was. It's just kind of laying on the pan, the diaper or whatever you want to call it, the belly pan. So make sure, you know, they probably wouldn't reflect on here unless it was really low. I mean, I'm sure it's not that much that leaked out. Just want to make sure. Yeah, it's still full. Sounds fine so far, so I'm just going to let it run for a little while and we'll come back and see what we got. Alright guys, been driving the car for about an hour now. I had to get my emissions test done before I was given a late fee, so just went and had that done. It was about a half hour away and had plenty of times where I came to a stop and idled and no issue whatsoever. Everything's just fine. So I'm pretty sure it was just the oil pressure sender or the oil pressure switch, whatever you want to call it, in this case. But I went ahead and did those other check valves too, since we already had them out and they're not that expensive and it's a known failure point. So I'm gonna come up here to stop. See if we can let it idle for a second. Yeah, I mean, basically, you know, it would have done it already. So everything seems good. People over here probably think I'm about to shoot up the place because I just stopped in this drug dealer mobile here. Anyway, I think we're good. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, share. It really helps out the algorithms. If you found this video helpful, you know, you want to promote it to help other people out, please do all that stuff. Anyway, again, thanks for watching. See you on the next one.